Yeah. To follow up on those millennial parents, I feel like there's a few things at play here. First of all, there's more single parents than ever before, and I feel like millennials have become more willing to embrace that. And another video that I saw from Libs from TikTok, who's doing an extraordinary job and probably one of the most influential people in our parts of the political space, but it was this one mother in a dressing room with her child. Do you guys know what I'm talking about with this dress?
Horrible.
And at the end of every sentence she would just be like, right, you love this dress, right? Like, you picked out this dress, right? Like, you feel good in it. You want to buy this dress. They make fun of you at school. You know, they make fun of me too. And then it like pans to herself and it's her smirking. So it's like a lot of these I don't know if she's a single parent, but it's a lot of these single parents, these millennial people projecting their beliefs onto their children. And it was a non-binary looking type millennial mother. And they were just so willing to experiment. And also like this idea that wearing dresses makes you a girl. And like a child would understand that as a concept, that wearing a dress makes you think you somehow want to transition to a girl, is so crazy and unfathomable unless you project so much of your gender ideology onto this child. But crazy video.
Also, I mean, if she's not a single parent, that father should be unbelievably ashamed. I mean, functionally she is.
I just want to say, I feel bad for people who didn't have two parents. I mean that genuinely. I know people who were in single family homes, and I'm just like, the people that I knew who grew up with just their dad or just their mom, and their parents are good people trying really, really hard. They did not have that two-parent privilege, we'll call it.
It's twice as much time, twice the income.
Mm-hmm. It's learning how to bake cookies with your mom. It's playing ball with your dad, or playing ball with your mom and baking cookies with your dad. Maybe your dad's a famous chef or baker. Mm-hmm. Maybe your mom's a sports manager, or in business.
Or she's a stay-at-home mom who's giving you individualized attention and caring for you.
I remember, just I could not imagine not having a mom and a dad.
How high is talk about Black Americans and their family destructions and cause their kids no role models in the home, no dads, live on welfare. I heard it's like 70% of Black family households are led just by single mothers. Where are their fathers? And where are those role models for their children? They're those young boys. They're stuck in their schools, and they have no way to get a quality education because Democrat control the school district do not allow school choice, and then they get bored and they have no interest in school. And they become gangs, and they get arrested and thrown into jail for years and years. It's horrible. But they don't talk about this when they talk about Black Lives Matter. Let's talk about the cause of their poverty and their high crime rate.
The opposition of school choice is one of the most shocking things to me, because I'm confused. You've got a low-income neighborhood of any race, and the parents are like, we have no choice but to send our kids to a low-income school with low-income teachers with no resources. With school choice, they could literally just go to the next town over, which may be wealthier, and be like, we choose this school. And then that money goes to the school, and the school gets bigger. And the good schools then grow and can bring in the lower income kids into the better schools. Why do they oppose that?
Well, because lots of teachers' unions oppose to it. So when people say, and we really worry, concerned for the people of color, well, in Democrat-controlled cities, states, they are in the pockets of teachers' unions and who donate lots of money for their re-elections, right? And the teachers' union, you see how they behave during the COVID. They want to use the school reopening as a negotiation condition to say, you kids are not going to come back to school until we get what we want in Los Angeles. It's all Marxist agenda.
Exactly.
It's horrible.
It's such an incredibly powerful union because they can literally keep your children hostage. They say, well, we're not going to be giving them an education unless you meet our demands. And it's really unfortunate because I am not against collective bargaining. I think unions can be great. The teachers' unions are not. They are the perfect example of how it can absolutely become the case that a union just ends up being an organization which protects the weaker workers from the better workers who would outperform them and receive more promotions. And so when you see them opposing school choice, my thought is these teachers are constantly complaining about lower wages. Well, wouldn't it be the case that if we had school choice and educational institutions had to compete for students, they would also have to compete for good teachers so that they can ensure a decent educational quality and get kids to go there. So if you are a good teacher, school choice isn't a threat because good schools will want you and you'll have more options as well outside of the public school system.
Give you example, DC Teachers Union shut down the very popular charter school in DC because all the black families and children, they're waiting in long line to get into this charter school. But they shut that down. Do they really care about people of color? Like they claim, and they're trying to teach critical race theory into all 14,000 school districts. Say that you're oppressed if you're people of color, but do you really care about people of color to strive to get out of poverty, except sitting there being pressed and say, well, victims? If you really care about them, then you got to lift them up by having educational choice for parents, for kids. I feel very strongly about it. It's my top 3 issues. Defend the parental rights and parental choice. Otherwise, those kids are stuck in their poor performing schools and there's no competition. And you can throw all the money you want to from taxpayers at it, and they do not improve in terms of testing schools, testing scores and the quality education. At the same time, they're taught, equity. So government give me some. Yeah. How do they take a personal responsibility to become like entrepreneurs, become good in math and ratings and science, and they're competing with the other country kids for lots of good jobs right now. But instead, they're focused on crap they're teaching school.
Yeah. Moreover, the way that they're saying that they're helping these students are actually hurting. It's coming at the cost of other students. So a lot of ways that they're saying they're helping black and brown people in these communities is by getting rid of the upper class classes, the honor classes, because they say that it racially divides children because more and white Asian tend to be in the honors classes. And therefore, if we see any, not a direct reflection of population in class sizes and how it's distributed, it's automatically racist. So what do they say? They just get rid of the honors classes, and then they say they're helping everybody, but really it just comes at the cost of our best students.
Mm-hmm. That's why Asian Americans families are moving into more and more voting for Republicans because they value education, they value their kids and quality of their education. Now they say all this stuff. Oh, my kids' AP class is canceled, and also Asian children when they're trying to apply for Harvard, Yale, they get discriminated because there's quotas. They're too excellent. You cannot go if you have to wait at the bottom of the line once the quotas is gone. And the DOJ dropped the lawsuit against Yale when the Asian parents sued Yale to say you're discriminating against our kids based on skin color because they're Asians. But instead of look at the individual meritocracy, which this country is supposed to be, and the left will say, oh, you Asians are too rich. Oh, it's about the class, economical class. It's a classical Marxist theory that it's, we have highest income in the country than white. So now in Washington State, if you're Asian children, you're supposed to go to the white group because you make too much money.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think part of this is a symptom of how completely economically illiterate the left is. So it seems to me as if they more or less see the economy as something which serves us by giving people busy work to keep them focused on other things all day. They don't actually understand how supply chains work. That's part of why they had no apprehensions about shutting the entire economy down. They don't understand where goods and services really come from and the fact that the work people do in our economy is important. And so they will look at any particular field and they'll say, we need to make sure that this is equitable. We need to make sure that we see a perfect demographic breakdown of the population here. Otherwise, it's unfair. Instead of going, given that the purpose of an economy is to deliver goods and services, these people are in this field because they found their way there because they're best at doing it. And maybe it is better for us to have people who are good at jobs do them instead of shoehorning people into positions or out of them based on their ethnic identity. And one more thing I want to mention is the left has constantly claimed that they are the party and the ideology of education and higher learning. Firstly, they have flat out lied about that for years. They've claimed that we're constantly slashing funding for education. It's literally not true. Federal spending per pupil has increased every single year since 1970. Test scores have not increased. And by the way, that's an increase in funding adjusted for inflation as well. And so with all of this extra money we've been spending on education at the federal level, what are they doing? Like you said, cutting gifted classes, giving fewer children opportunities to excel. It's sickening.
It's interesting because we keep hearing about this potential Asian backlash against the Democratic Party, but I don't know if it's ever come to fruition because these cases against like Yale and Harvard have been going on for, I feel like, almost a decade now. We're also seeing hate crimes towards Asians in a lot of different communities that we're waiting to see this backlash from, also on the education front. But I don't know.
Well, what percentage of the United States is Asian?
I think it's relatively small, but in certain areas they have, I think they're gathered around the coasts mostly, so in specific areas they might have outsized influence. As I understand, in New York City and Chinatown, Asians are, the Chinese specifically, are some of the least politically involved. And they don't refuse to vote, but they just don't. And it's interesting because there's a lot of reasons for that. The system that they came from in China, obviously they didn't have the opportunity to vote in the past. Also, there's this language barrier that exists still in a lot of these Chinese immigrant communities. So there's a lot of factors
7%.
going on. 7%.
7%.
And in New Hampshire, is Asian Americans is 3%, but it is the second largest minority group.
So I'm not sure that the Democrats are worried about 7%. When they were talking about, Bill Maher was talking about student debt forgiveness. Bill Maher said 13% of Americans have student debt, not a large group. And he's outright saying, like, why would we be focused on this 13%? Well, Asians are 7%. Mm-hmm. I certainly think the Democrats don't care. Mm-hmm. I've mentioned this on the show many times. When I was younger, I was told never to check Asian off on any form when asked ask for my race, because I was told you will be discriminated against based on the assumptions they make about Asians. So you're better off just putting white down or something.
But they use us when they want to advance their agenda called Stop Asian Hate.
Right.
White are racist. White supremacists are attacking Asians. According to DOJ data, 2018, most crimes happened against the Asians. You know what? They are people of color.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think Asians are also scared to talk about this. One rep, his name is John Liu, in Lower Manhattan. I've spoken to him about this. And what did he say when he was trying to address these hate crimes? He was telling me about like education classes. I also think there's an issue here with influential Asian people in the culture, in media, unwilling to call out this crime specifically because they're scared to get labeled racist. And it's a sad fact of reality.
Well,
it's very sad for me. I have been telling people I see similarities between Mao's Cultural Revolution and with what's going on in today's America. And instead we use classes here, just use races. It's everything's about race. Everything's about your skin color instead of your diversity of ideas and thoughts, personality and skills and knowledge, right? I love diversity, like you said. We're all part of diversity, but they only talk about diversity of the skin color, which is wrong.
And also, and not only that, they only talk about diversity of skin color when they consider it to be advantageous to them, or diversity of ethnicity when it's advantageous to them. We were just mentioning the fact that they want fewer Asian students in universities. And you mentioned the Asian hate and that there's hate crimes against Asians. Well, this is just the inevitable byproduct of critical theory as applied to race. When you spend decades telling the black community that the white community is only successful and only doing well because they have stolen something from you, that instills in the psyche of the general public that if any group of people is outperforming another group of people, it is because they have victimized that group. Yep. So the inevitable conclusion from that kind of logic is that Asian people have cheated in some way. So the expectation is that we would see more crimes against them. It's horrific, but it's an insane ideology based on greed and envy, and it is to blame for these hate crimes. There's no question about it.
You know what's really funny? That there are stereotypes and tropes about Asian parents. You watch any comedy show and the Asian parent is demanding of their kid to get better grades. Futurama I had the joke, I think it was Futurama, are you a doctor yet? Or was that, what was it? No, it was a different show. Anyway, the point is,
it might have been Futurama.
Might have been Futurama.
Oh yeah, if you don't get a straight A, you better explain to your parents why you did not get a straight A. My kids will complain about me.
There's what they call positive discrimination stereotype against Asians, that the Asian parent is a strict academic. And then all of a sudden they're like, how come Asians make more money? We should imagine this. Your parents are strict and tell you to work hard, study hard, and get into the best school. So the school says, make it harder. So what? What's the outcome then? The parents should be like, it doesn't matter if you work hard because the school's not going to let you in anyway. And then once the scores start dropping, they'll be like, okay, now we can let them back in because they're not doing as well. It's insane.
The thing is, and traditionally, culture-wise, that Asian parents always value education because that's the only way they can get out of poverty. Look at the Chinese people who come from China, like me, who started with nothing. And because of the education, the skill, the degree we got, we get good jobs, we start our own business, we work their butt off and to achieve American dream. We're not rich. We have no connection in this country. We have no social status. We have no inheritance money in this country. It is a hard work ethics make us successful. And I have seen parents from China running a restaurant. Look how hard work that is. 7 days a week, no vacations. They send their kids $50,000 a year to Harvard. And now there's like, oh, my kids cannot get in no matter how high their ACT is. And now even take ACT might be racist.
Now this is a question I would love to see.
It
answered.
is, by the way.
We have the trope of the student going to college and then coming back with their head shaved and purple hair. What would happen to a kid who's in an Asian family? The Asian parents are very strict, saying, you better score really high in SATs. You're going to go to Harvard. And then they score really, really well, and they're wearing like a suit and tie, and they go off to the university and then come home to their Asian family with their head shaved, purple hair, and they're wearing like cut off sleeves and like sweatpants. And they're like, whatever, Dad, I don't care anymore. Call me Janet.
I want to mention, you said that something about the ACTs. There are SATs. There are people who consider the SATs and ACTs to be racially biased, so they are considered racist as well.
You know,
any disparity that exists.
But here's something you might not know. Canceling academic achievement excellence is what Mao did during China's Cultural Revolution. One guy, after Cultural Revolution, like a school reopened, he was taking a test, and he said, I don't care about this. I'm going to turn in my test blank. So he got a big 0, right? Guess what? He's a glorious. They made him a hero. And his name is Zhang Tieshen. I remember that very well. So now I'm seeing the same thing happen in this country. Canceling individual excellence in academic, in science, in art, in comedy shows. Can you say why I'm warning people this is a cultural revolution happening in America?
Yeah.
It's scary stuff.
Tim, you mentioned how a lot of these Asian immigrants' parents are sending their kids to college. They're coming back head shaved.
No, I'm not saying they are. I'm saying I wonder what that like. It's one thing if you're a liberal, American, and your kid comes back and they're doing all of these things and they believe all this weird stuff. And these liberals are going to be like, oh, very progressive of you, honey. But for like a strict conservative Asian parent, for that to happen to their kids, they might be like, what?
I'm not saying this is the exact same thing, but I want to draw a parallel. But the Cultural Revolution was actually led by the youth, right? In China.
Red Guards.
The Red Guards were all the youth in the schools that were the leaders of this. So that same parallel that we're seeing in the universities that happened in China, we are seeing to some degree here as well. Because kids are going to college, becoming more indoctrinated, coming back to their home, and the parents don't understand what their kids came.
But they don't know the history. That's what I'm saying. They even don't know.
Some of them praise it. I know people who think what's happening in China and what's happened in the past is a good thing. I know people online on Twitter. I feel like it's easy to find people denying that the Tiananmen Square massacre even happened. So we are seeing a lot of that stuff.
If they were in this country, even deny that. It's like we should shoot them a tank, man.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.